Ozzy. Looking for things that were said by Big Steve.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the September edition of the Aussie Minifan Show. I'm Menas. I'm joined by just Jamie. Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Menas, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Great reception to the last Aussie Minifan Show where we brought in Jackson. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite tee up the times, but I think we've found a good combo. You, me, and Jackson could be the new show.
Yeah, he definitely works well, and he doesn't mind copping the shit that, we occasionally cop on the show. But yeah, he works out well. It's just he works during the day, I work during the night, and we just couldn't get it to work. But he'll be back. He'll 100% be back.
Yep. So, definitely. And look, this is our sort of monthly view from the Kirk Minahan show from Australia. Obviously, a lot of people keep tweeting me about us being in lockdown and our cops going mad on the streets. We're not going to talk about any of that today. COVID can sit over one side. We're going to talk about all the show issues. We haven't done a show since Dave cost them, almost 30K. We haven't done a show since Chris has been a regular. So a lot to get through. What do you want to start with, Jamie?
Oh, I guess we should probably start with the big one, right? Dave and Justin combined costing the show $30,000. 25 now. He's managed to weasel it down to 25K. But I listened to the Dave Portnoy show, and Dave was just stunned at how anything like that could happen. But he did say it's not Kirk's fault. It's not Dave's fault. It's the caterer's fault. Like, they should be more clear with that type of stuff. So he didn't completely take the blame away from Dave or Kirk, but he did say, like, the caterer's got to be more clear with and try and clarify what's going on. So, it's still a huge fuck up. Like,
what's your blame pie breakdown?
I was thinking about this. I'm like, I think 70% goes to Justin.
Wow.
Yeah, 15% would go. 15% would go to Dave, and I find it hard to give Kirk any blame, but I got to give a little bit because he's the one who, like he says, he won't fire Justin. He can't fire him, so you got to expect this thing from people that aren't up to the standards. But you can't fire him. He's too good for. I mean, he's too good for the show. He's a good dude, but yeah, I got to give 10% for Kirk just for the inability to fire people, and he put it on them. He said, hey, do this, which shouldn't have been a hard task. Like Dave Callahan said, he did it in 10 minutes, but he's got to take a little bit of the blame.
Okay, fair enough. I went totally different. I gave 10% to Justin because I just think he should never have been given any responsibility. And, when Chris was saying to Kirk, why did you think he could do it? And Kirk's only defense was, well, he has to do something. I mean, he has to do something, clean the toilets, cut clips, all that kind of stuff, not actually organizing an event that should be a highlight for Minifans. And I think Socko was left wanting. We'll get to there. So I've got 10% Justin, 15% for Kirk. Like you, just putting Justin in charge was a mistake. But I've only given Kirk a little bit because I think, you would expect sort of an adult to be able to do better than Justin did with that. 25% I'm giving to the caterer because there's no way you take a job for 30 grand without sending an estimate through.
Yeah.
And then 50% for Dave, quite simply for that one message that said, billing Barstool, and he writes back confirmed. I mean, it's sort of when you're in hospitality and when you're in management, and this is sort of going to be part of my mentoring program. Applications are open. They're free sessions. They will be broadcast later. But, part of it is about, sort of who's the last point of call. And the last point of call was Dave, and that message confirmed. Okay, Justin had made many mistakes before them, but had Dave just rung up Dustin when he saw that billing Barstool and said, hey, what's this about? I thought you were charging the attendees for what they bought. This whole thing would have been solved. So that's my blame pie.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It is the fact that Dave's only input was basically one text. There wasn't I'm new to this. Did you send Justin an invoice? But yeah, like just booking someone from 6 hours away to come and do a gig, like that's red flag number one. Yeah, they did good in Madawaska, but come on, man. Kirk's all about helping the local community. He helped out Madawaska when he was there. Let's help some local Sacco vendors. But yeah, I feel like Dave is just it's the lack of communication between Dave and Justin. Justin going off at the time he did, not really communicating enough through with Dave or Kirk in general. It was just small worded text. I just feel like Justin's got to have a good chunk of the pie, and Cullinane's not off scot-free, but he's less to blame than Justin for sure.
Yeah. Do you think Justin should be at
I should have
least?
blamed the caterer.
Do you think Justin should be at least sort of reduced in his, I guess, influence on the show? Like they should reduce his role. It seems like there's too much Justin.
Well, I think now that they're not doing the YouTube stuff, I think the need to clip the show and put it out as it's going live is probably lessened. So maybe during the show, he's not so much of a voice anymore, at least for the next month as a punishment. And then he just focuses on clipping it afterwards for promotions. But there has been a lot of Justin. Kirk has been leaning on him a lot. Maybe that's because Dave's not a good on-air guy. I disagree. I think he's great, but Kirk does seem to be going to Justin a lot when he's in, like a lot.
But I think it's sort of, and again, this is part of the mentoring program. I think Kirk's maybe got to dial in on his management structure. And, I think it's really got to be clear, Cullinane's running everything and then the others report to him. And I know when Steve left, Kirk kind of changed that a bit and he's paying Dave a bit less and he's not doing quite full time. And that means it's a little bit different to when Steve was there. But I think this has shown that you need a clear management structure. And, and at least Kirk was the one that kind of has to foot the bill. Like normally stuff ups get passed on to Minifans and they end up having to foot the bill. Whereas this time it was unfortunately Kirk had to fork out from his like tens of millions.
We are still kind of footing the bill, not us personally, because we can't go to Sacco, so that's not our fault. But they're going to absolutely promote the shit out of this. There's going to be merch tables. There's going to be all these extra things. You might have to pay to get a photo with Kirk now, just so they can bring the money back. But listening to Portnoy, he was surprisingly very relaxed about it. And then you hear the way Dave talks about Erica's interactions with him about it. It's almost like it's just a bit of content and a joke for them. So I honestly expected someone, especially like Portnoy, when Eddie raised it to him, I thought he was going to tear it a new one and just like go at Kirk, go at Cullinane, demand people get fired. But he was just blaming the caterer, saying their lack of putting an invoice forward, like itemizing things. When you come in 6 hours, you're going to have 1,000 people. Surely you have some sort of visual confirmation, like, hey, just so you know, does this sound about right, or is this price okay? So then Dave can go, whoa, hang on, no, you charge people when you're here, like. And what's with 100%. The bacon wrapped scallops? Like,
but I think Portnoy knew exactly this was coming out of Kirk's end. So he did
say that.
He thought that was pretty funny. I must admit, my FOMO was out of control while they were in Sacco. These live events, it's very painful for us Australian Minifans. And thank you, Poodle Dick, for sending in a question. What was our last live show like? Or what was our favorite live show? Trying to rib us because we can't actually get there. So in the last week and a half, I've been consuming every Minifan bit of content to try and find out every bit of juicy gossip from Sacco, and I even watched the 420 show. I've watched everything just to find out what happened. What about you?
I've just been, just listening to the show. I heard them talk a little bit about it on the Blind Mike project, but it's annoying because Madawaska is my favorite live show event that we weren't there for, but we got to hear the podcast and it was probably the best show that they've ever done, even with Mike being as drunk as he was and belligerent and aggressive. It was great. But, the fact that he cut this off to those of us in Australia that are fighting the fight for the Minifan world to grow it down here was just heartbreaking. And I just don't have the time to consume all of the Miniworld content. I'm on a couple of the GVE stuff. Just I see the link and I'm like, this will be fun. You were on there as well. So that was good. We hadn't caught up in a while. So that was basically all it was for us. And there's only so much the Minifans are going to talk about the show that you can actually feel like you were there. Like you said, the FOMO was huge, missing out on another live show, especially Sacco, where it's basically just Minifest. You just get together and, drink and cheer and just shoot the shit. And then Kirk does a show and, that's it. But, it's the only things I've gotten from it is the incident between is it BAC and BPM? Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I've gotten out of it, other than it was just a hell of a lot of drinking, basically like Woodstock for Minifans.
Exactly,
a lot of fat guys.
I was watching Justin to Cully before we jumped on from today's show, and that was with Dave and Tim Richards, and Ziggy called in and said to Dave, "So who's the guest on the Friday night pre-show, and Dave was like, I don't get the joke here. And I'm going to explain it to you, Dave. The joke is that in every other live event, there's usually a Friday night warm-up show the night before for people to get there early. But the last event was the only event that hasn't happened. So I think Ziggy was trying to make fun of the fact that, you didn't do one. And, have you even thought about one for the next Sucko show?
And Ziggy, known Steve hater, but that was one of the things Steve did. He looked after the fans that wanted to get there early. Mike and the Minifans would be doing something. They'd have some sort of event set up. There was just nothing. It's almost like Dave was only focused on the actual show itself, like getting that sort of sorted. And
not even that. There was hardly any videos, no introduction to the show, which Dave said, I forgot to introduce you, Kirk. Oh, that was funny. And all that kind of stuff.
Whose fault's that, Dave? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's the little things that Steve he wouldn't so much worry about the technical stuff because he knows he can do that, but he would make sure the whole event was actually something that the Minifans walk away with and they love it. Like, yeah, they love this Sucko, but it was missing a lot, Ted and Blind Mike doing skits from movies and messages from Kate that are translated in Chinese because that was a thing going on last time Sucko was around. And he just seemed to only focus on the technical stuff and making sure the audio sounded good. He didn't seem to care about the whole experience, which
the content,
even though Kirk says he doesn't care, he does because he wants the show to be good. Like, he's going to make Wilbur amazing. And it's those little things. That's where Justin really should have stepped up and been like, hey, Dave, we should do this. Let me take care of this. You sort out the catering so we don't have a $30,000 bill. I'll sort out the pre-show and, getting some videos sorted, which, when he went on his mental leave, it just seemed to just completely go away. There were no videos from him. And I mean, it still sounded like a good show. Seems like everyone had a great time, but it definitely wasn't the same as it would be if Steve was in charge. And I know you're not a Steve fan, so.
No, you're right. What do you think of Steve's victory lap since this whole 29K thing? I mean, it's almost every day.
The lies that he says that he likes Dave Cullinane is just that's the funniest bit. Like, there's always been, Dave can say it all he likes. Oh no, I like Steve. We know there's animosity there. Every time Dave came in to fill in for Steve, it was always about what he could be doing better. And I think Steve's victory lap is just because he knows all the shit Dave said about doing it better. It's been proven wrong, and Steve was a really good producer for the show, not just for the content, but for everything he did. So I'm going to applaud it. I'm going to say, hey, you're on your victory lap. Things were better when I hate admitting this because I'm a Cully guy, but things were better when Steve was running the show behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree because I think we've actually had great KMS shows since Cullinane came on board. Most of that's been Kirk making fun of Dave and Dave making all these mistakes, but I still think we've had great content. So I'm not going to give Steve quite the credit you gave him, but there's no doubt Steve is a professional. I'll give him that. I always actually said that when he was producing, that I didn't like his personality, but he was a professional, and I'll stick to that. I would love it if they could actually broadcast the Sucko show. I don't care if it's live or it's on demand a bit later, but if we got a window into that event, that would be incredible.
I'll buy it for sure. I wouldn't buy a Rough and Rowdy, but I'll buy a Kirk Minahan at Sucko show. Absolutely. I know he puts shit on you and he doesn't like the Aussie fans and doesn't want to grow the show, but you want to make your $29,000 back? I got 6 names for you that'll buy the show right here. So, I mean, you'd have to charge $2,000 each, but you put it up there for $30, I'll buy it. I'll buy a t-shirt as well. Now that Barstool ships to Australia, I'll get the 29K t-shirt for sure.
Yeah, I've ordered one already. It should be here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, Barstool's good like that. They're very quick with their shipping.
You say that. Yeah. Do you say that Kirk doesn't like us though? Do you think he doesn't like us?
No, I think it's for show. I don't want him to go at us because of this, but I think he consumes everything. And I think he likes the fact that there are psychos like us down in Australia that do a show purely about him. It's a very niche category down here. There's 6 of us that we know. I think 7 actually, but there could be more. They just won't come forward. Or they're like Kirk says, there's majority of Minifans aren't on Twitter, aren't in the world. They just listen to the show and enjoy the show. But, there's 7 of us that I know of that love the show down here, listen to every episode. Doesn't matter if it's Steve or Dave or it's 50 minutes, although I like the ones that go over 50 minutes, but he's got to like the fact that there's fans down here. He's got to, like, his name is international and Canada doesn't count. It's fucking baby United States. Like,
I get I get the feeling sometimes like he just thinks we're kind of no use to him. Like, not in a sense that he's not happy that we're listening to the show, but the fact that, we're so far away, we can't make any meaningful contributions to the show
Yeah.
in terms of, I don't know, going into studio or doing stuff, even going to live events and doing stuff like for him, well, and we're not even sort of in the American market. So I sort of think because we're so far away, he just kind of sees us as useless in that capacity.
Yeah, it's good they listen, but yeah, even if all 7 of them buy 2 shirts, that makes them fuck all money. The ads that they do really don't appeal to us. I can order stuff from Milton's, and I will, but most of their ads we can't do anything with. So yeah, we're not the best sort of country to be fans of this show, but if he promoted us a little bit more and said, I want to hear from all my Australian fans, and they reached out to us, and we could maybe grow the name, and maybe we could be useful. I know a few podcasts I listen to from the UK and the States, they have ads that are targeted for Australian fans because obviously there's a bigger market down here. So,
and you can do that now pretty easily.
Yeah, it's just, hook us up. It'll be pre-recorded. It'll be garbage stuff that I'll probably never get involved with. But some of the things that they advertise now, I'd love for them to be done in Australia. Simply Safe, that'd be freaking awesome for our apartment. We got a psycho neighbor, so it'll be good to have some Simply Safe around here. But, I guess, yeah, like you said, he doesn't see us as a viable market share because, we are so far away. We can't go to live shows. We can't, even if we all buy shit, it's not a dent in what, 20 people from right next door from the studios could make a dent into. Like, they can actually consume sponsors and things like that. Like, but, we still love the show.
Yeah. Do you think, and I'm curious, do you think had I not been so far away by now, I would have been asked in for a show in studio?
Yes.
If I was near, because if I was Chris in and all these other people, surely they would have got me in or you in or both of us.
For sure, you would have been on that show. I don't know about me. I think he still hopes that I die of brain cancer, but you absolutely, he couldn't not have you on the show if you were over there. Like, your personality, the divisiveness that you put out in the Minifan world, you're exactly the type of person he wants on the show.
Yeah.
He had Craig as a producer. Like,
I hope one day I can go over and do that. He'll be so kind enough to let me in, and that happens. But unfortunately, the borders are still closed. I want to talk about a little bit of news. So I guess if for those watching, there's a few more show topics. We've got a few show questions. I actually want to ask Jamie about his new career path as Australia's Kirk Minahan. But before we get there, I was listening to the Blind Mike project earlier this week, and there was some incredible revelations in it. And Kirk, Blind Mike said it on his podcast, so we can talk about it. That at Madawaska #1, the infamous one where Mike got shit faced, he one night, and I'm not sure if it's the Friday or Saturday, maybe the Saturday, he was sort of, as he put it, canoodling with a female that wasn't Alba, and Minifan saw that and were kind of holding it over his head. And when he says canoodling, he means kind of, holding hands and being flirty with someone. There was no, from my understanding, there was no actual action. And then Justin, I think at one point said to Mike, "Oh, let's go to bed." And so he took him away because he was too drunk. So, so thank you for Justin for, I guess, saving Mike and Alba right there. And then it might have been a beautiful love story between Mike and some groupie. But what's your initial reaction?
I mean, we kind of had a backside into that story when the political campaign between he and Ted were going. It was thought that was the reason Blind Mike decided to step away.
I never even knew that story then. How did you know? I thought this was, I mean, I often say the shadows of the Minifan world are quite dark. The corners are quite dark. And I feel
I'm in them.
Yeah, so you must have, because I hadn't heard anything of this. And it makes sense to me now because there was always something underlying, Mike, about Madawaska 1 that wasn't just messing up the show.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I was on one. When everyone was in lockdown, we were doing those Minifan group chats where we'd all just jump on. It would be a show. I think it was in one of those. A Tim and Canton or a Steve from Providence alluded to something that may have happened. I thought it was just a joke, and then I think it was later sort of put forward that people talking in the background were saying that that's one of the reasons why Mike stepped back. He was worried that it was going to come out and it was going to affect him and Alba. If it's just canoodling and you're holding hands and nothing's happened, like you're not kissing, you're not doing anything like that, like. I mean, clearly a groupie of Blind Mike, which I'm one of. I would love to walk alongside him and hold his hand. It would be great. Sort of guide him around the potholes. Yeah, kiss on the cheek, nothing major, but why if I do that, is it any different to some random girl doing that? Like, I feel like Alba's too good of a person to care about anything like that. It was very minor, but yeah, it's good to see that, Mike is kind of admitting to the stories, the rumors that were going on in the shadows of the Minifan world, as you say. And I'm
Yeah,
glad
well,
it hasn't affected him and Alba.
yeah, because BPM was kind of holding it over his head when he was talking, when Mike
Which
was
is
talking about
such a
BPM, big BAC. I mean, that was a very low moment for BPM. And
such a Murchison act as well, like to hold something over people. Like, oh, not a Murchison act. He would just go about it. But just not a Minifan, not a Minahan trait. Like that's not something that Kirk would do. Hold something, blackmail people with things like this. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing in this
exactly.
world? This used to be such a happy place.
So I just feel sorry for Mike. Send him my love.
Yeah.
Obviously he got a bit too drunk and got a bit handsy with a girl. It can happen. And then it was made worse by the fact that it was, in a place where lots of fans of the show is on, were listening and seeing, and therefore could sort of hold it over his head. So that must have been an
Credit to
awful,
Justin.
yeah. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe, he stopped a beautiful love story. But anyway,
Yeah.
just an incredible revelation.
Yeah.
Just shows the many layers to Madawaska, and why I would love to be at a Minifan event. Oh, I mean, I'd be taking
Absolutely,
videos of Mike canoodling. I'd be doing everything.
I can't wait to I think they were talking about it today that we may have borders open come October if we get to a certain vaccination level. So fucking come on, so we can actually make plans to go over to some live events next year.
Exactly.
Like I'm sure Wilbur's going to be next year. There might be tickets available if we can get an ability to get over to the States as quick as possible. We could be it with a Wilbur show. Something never thought possible in the world, but it could be possible now.
My fingers are crossed.
Thank you, COVID.
Yeah. Now I thought you mentioned that before we started, you want to talk about Quantum Week, Chris, and how the show's going. So I thought actually, you and I should grade each person on the show as it stands at the moment, because I think Kirk graded Cullinane. So why don't we just grade the whole lot? So we'll start with the man at the top, Kirk Minahan. What letter grade do you give him for the show since Dave started?
I know it's going to be a big suckhole move, but A+. Since Dave started, I think he's done what he does best, and it's put shit on the people that are in and around him. So I think he's gone back to his classic days. The less negativity from Steve being around is gone now. Yeah, Dave's clumsy and stupid. Same with Justin, but Kirk knows how to take advantage and make that funny. I think he's an A+ for sure.
Yeah, I'm giving him an A, not quite an A+, because I feel like there's a bit of spin going on with Kirk with Socko. I think he knows the last show wasn't that good and it was a bit thin, but he doesn't want to say it, so that's why he doesn't.
Not his fault.
No, it's not his fault. But kind of is. Everything sort of the buck stops.
He is the manager.
Like, if you're sort of running a good leadership structure, then you sort of got checks and balances, and a few days before Socko, you're not going, where's the stage, where's the content, what's the catering. But anyway, that aside. So I'm going Kirk, A. I guess then, Dave Cullinane. I mean, I think the marks floating around like a D, E. Yeah, you go.
I'm like at a C. I think he's been okay. Technically, the show's been good. The quality of the show has been a lot more fun and a lot funnier. But yeah, behind the scenes stuff is still affecting him. He wasn't fully invested into the Sacco show. Like he didn't have everything that Steve would have had. How you have a $29,000 catering bill is amazing, even though, like I said, mostly it's Justin's fault. But yeah, see, he's been good. The show's been a lot funnier. Like you said, it's been so much more of a better show since he started. But, live events, it's just kind of, it brings him down. So yeah, I can't go below a C, but definitely a C.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to be boring, listeners, but I'm viewers. I'm the same. I'm going to give Dave a C. I think my reasoning is slightly different. I just think it's the I hate this sort of the sort of people that say they're going to do a lot but don't do it. So where's the Saturday Night Minifan show? Where was the pre-show for Socko? Why is the wrap-up show worse than when Justin was doing it? I mean, it's getting better, but still, it's not released as an audio format only anymore, so you have to watch it on YouTube. It's called From Justin to Cully. Like, who gives a fuck what Justin says? He never says anything meaningful anyway. It's just a Kirk suck bump. So the things around the show haven't developed as I would have hoped. He never plugs Minifan HQ. He never asks for stuff. He's not quite dialed in yet. And I'm a bit sick of him going back to sort of Boston radio talk as his sort of fallback topic.
As a crutch, yeah. I mean, Dave Portnoy started Barstool and the tagline was promise big, deliver big. Dave Cullinane, promise big, has delivered nothing. Like, if anything, the YouTube channel has taken a step back from when Steve was in charge, and Steve hated the Minifans, and it's still going back from there. Like, and he's got to realize, right? Most of the like, look at the downloads on the show as a podcast, and then look at how many YouTube views the stuff on YouTube gets. Huge difference. Put the wrap up show out on an audio format, you'll get better numbers, because most of the fans listen to it on a podcast format.
Exactly.
We don't have the time to go and watch the YouTube all the time, or we don't pay for YouTube Premium, so you can close it and still listen to it. We're audio fans, so.
I actually do pay for YouTube Premium now.
I haven't yet. It is tempting, but because you can have that ability. But he needs to look at the demographic and how we consume the content, and realize audio form is better than get out of this Jerry Callahan phase. Kirk Minahan fans are way better and way more passionate than Jerry Callahan fans. We're not retired. We don't have the time. We work. We video audio format is the way we consume stuff. So everything he does should be in at least a podcast form along with YouTube. Like, look at your audience.
Now, the next person, I guess, would be Blind Mike. What's your mark for him?
I got to say an A. I think he's been great since he's come back. I think the pressure of not working for Barstool now, having his own thing going on, has just made, like, he's turned into the Blind Mike for when he first joined the show, when he wasn't a paid employee. He's just fun again. And he seems like he's enjoying it. He's having a lot of fun on his Patreon show, patreon.com/Blind Mike. And, I think he's been really good. He's easily the best contributor to the show. A for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give him an A-. Terrific guy. His contributions since Dave have come in have been excellent. You can tell he loves having Cullinane around to make fun of.
Yep.
He's not sort of threatened by him like he was with Steve. They've got a much better relationship. And yeah, I agree with you. I think we're seeing the best of Mike. It's strange that he has to be in a situation where he's just working for free to feel comfortable.
It's a weird thing to be. Like,
again, mentoring programs open, Mike. Happy to take you on. Again, really, I think there's a lot of sessions available for you. All right, so we've got those, and then Quantum Week Chris. I mean, since the last Manners Live, he's become the new Friday guy. He's usurped one Jared Carabas, and I have to say that myself and Visionless Dave destroyed Carabas. I mean, he was never the same after our first gathering of the goats. It was a complete shredding of someone who says they're untouchable on the internet. That's what Jared says. He's untouchable. Well, we touched him. We towed him up. Where is he now? Nowhere. I'm going to say Chris. I'm going to give Chris I'm going to give him a B-. I think he's getting more and more comfortable. I think the last episode he did with Kirk was the most comfortable I've seen him, and he was ribbing him, and he was a bit more playful. So I think, he's got the potential to be an A+. I do think that a bit like Dave and the radio talk, they've got this movie crutch that they fall back on. But I love the way Chris brings up Minifan shit all the time. He brings up YouTube stuff all the time. So I'm giving him a B-.
I mean, we all know my history with the Quantum Week guys and Carano and Chris, and there's been an animosity there in the past. But I love Carano on Jerry's show. I think he's a great fit for it. I won't be able to listen when they go to Patreon, but that's another story. But Chris, man, he's been great. I can't go a B- like you, and I hope you're not referring to a Harry Minahan B-. I hope it's a legitimate B-.
It is a legitimate B-.
I'll go a B+. I'll go
B+.
B+. Yeah, the one thing I marked him down for was the game from it's recency bias from that show. I got what he was talking about, but why couldn't you have just said, what are your 3 best picture winners in this decade? You don't have to start with the first 3 and then change them out. Just what are your 3 favorites? But he's been good. Like you said, Minifan stuff. He's in the world, so he can sort of portray what's going on in the world where Kirk, pretends he's not. And like you said, he's getting more and more comfortable, so he can actually go back at Kirk and he'll tell him he's wrong, or, sort of be a little bit more combative, like Mike was after 4 or 5 months of being on the show. It only took Chris like 3 or 4 episodes, but he's been really good. I'm enjoying him on the show.
B+.
B. No, I'll go a B. The game really hurt.
I'm keeping a record of these.
Nice, because I like you said, he's got A+ potential. If a few more episodes on that show, I think he's going to definitely rise up my ladder. But yeah, just a B. B is a perfect number at the moment. So perfect grade.
And well, the last one, the intern that's on leave, Justin. I mean, there's only one F. There's only one letter here, and it
you can't.
Begins with
it
F.
doesn't get. yeah, it doesn't get worse than F.
I
and
mean, it's an easy one.
he's been okay on the show. He's been pretty good in the Twitter world, maybe a bit aggressive towards Minifans that Kirk doesn't like, but the Sarko whole thing. And I know mental leave it's hard. It just hits you when it hits you, but to not even being able to communicate a little bit more with Kirk and Dave about what was going on for such a big event, it hurts him. The 29K is a big deficit, and it's very much on him. So yeah, it's got to be an F.
Yeah, and just pulling out the whole mental health card a few days before a massive event. Yeah. And look, I'm sure it's all legitimate, and I hope he gets better. But
yeah,
you still have responsibilities, and again, if you've got a proper leadership structure, then there's a handover of assets and material that obviously didn't happen. So look, that's pretty good. Kirk, you've gone A+, I've gone A. Cullinane, I think we've both gone C's. Yep. Mike, A for you, A- for me. Chris, B- for me. Chris, B for you. Justin, F for both of us. So they're the grades. Yeah. All right, we've got some listener questions, but before we get into that, I just want to talk about, I guess, my concerns around the Just Jamie B show. So obviously, I guess there's a lot of allegations floating around in the Minifan world that there's a lot of people trying to ride Kirk's coattails, and you've got all these shows popping up in all areas, and they're all trying to grab the Minifans' attention and grab them in Kirk's audience, and very good show. Dave, I mean, there's a whole swathe of these shows that they're trying to be Kirk impersonators, not like me satirizing and parodying him in his network. But actually trying to it's like if I did the Andrew Mintzel show and I'm going to be the fucking say what I want. So how do you respond to this allegation that you're a Kirk coattail holder?
I'll just throw the stats out there, and 95% of my audience is in Australia. So very minimal amount of engagement in the UK. In the US, I think it's 3% and 2% is the UK. So I'm not trying to be no Australian Kirk Minahan. My therapist sort of thought it would be a good idea because of what I was going through for being away from the family for a long time, that start a show where you just talk about whatever makes you feel happy. So I started like that. And, for me, it's a lot of sport. So I don't want to be no Kirk Minahan. I'll never be as good as him. He is the GOAT of podcasting Jesus. But, if any Minifans do want to listen, I mean, I'm sure a few do, because I have some in the US. They might be Minifans, they might not be. So, but no, I'm not trying to be no Kirk Minahan. No one can be Kirk Minahan. He is.
And you're not trying to steal his audience from him, are you?
No one steals his audience. Like, very good show gets Minifans listen. Yeah. You're never going to take, millions of people to listen to your podcast. Like, I don't want to be Kirk Minahan. You just can't. You can shoot for the stars as high as you want. The closest I'll probably get is Dave Portnoy. I'll never get the Kirk Minahan level. Not in a million years.
And I guess, who is this show for and why? Like, what's you said it's for your therapy, so that's fine from your point of view, but why should a listener listen? What's the value? Who is your audience, Jamie?
Anyone who wants to listen. Like, I know it's not my roommates or my missus, that's for sure. They don't listen because I leave little nuggets in the shows all the time to see if they do, but they don't. So I will be getting a husky if anyone actually listened to that episode. So, I just talk about shit I like to talk about. Like, a lot of it's COVID because, I think it's 12 weeks today since I last went home to see my family. So that kind of fucks with me a lot. Shit that angers me about sport, politics, music, movies, just anything. Like, you talk about, what's your 5 greatest sports video games you've ever played. So I just talk about that type of shit.
Just like, I like the movie. You want to be a personality. You want to be like a media personality. Like, people come and just hear what's on Jamie's mind.
Yeah. That's basically what the show is. What's on my fucking mind. Like, yeah. I don't, like, if someone says to me, "Oh, you're talking too much sport," it's like, well, fucking don't listen then. Like, I don't care. Like, which, is a little bit like Kirk, but it's not meant in that way. It's like, if you don't like sport, this is a heavy sport. I put it in the description. It's a heavy sport episode. Don't listen. Like, my roommates don't like sport. They don't understand it. They're big movie guys. So most of the shows have sport in them. If they like movies, listen to the movie shows. Like, you don't have to listen to every episode. Like, if it tickles your fancy, listen. If it doesn't, fucking don't listen. Like,
and you're a bit like Kirk in that you're sort of unfiltered.
No, I'm kind of filtered. There are a lot of things I wish I could say on the show, but I don't. I kind of filter myself because, I mean, my in-laws listen. One day my kids, like Kirk says, one day Kate and Harry might listen to his show. One day my kids might listen, and I got to kind of tone it down a little bit. I want to use a lot of words that I don't use, but really, there's only one, the C word, but it's, even though we're Aussies and people get that that's just a friendly word for us. If anyone else listens, then they might get offended. So, but then again, just don't fucking listen. Like, I don't care.
Right.
Like,
Well,
it's
best
therapy.
of luck with it. I mean,
Cheers.
I was worried that it was going to be brand damaging for the Aussie Minifan show, but I think you've pretty much dispelled the rumors there that not many Minifans are listening. So
Yeah,
that's
no.
good. I guess my advice to you, if you were to book a mentoring session, I would say you've still got to have a target audience. Think about who's going to listen, even if it's just men, 20 to 40 in Australia. Dial in on your subject matter a little bit more, because then people come back because they enjoyed it last time and they get the same experience again. So I would just think about who your listener is and chisel it down a little bit more, just a little bit more.
I do have good listener retention. Like, all of my show, it doesn't grow, but I do hit the same numbers every week, and they're better than any other podcast I've ever done, except for this one.
Yeah.
But, they're not great numbers, but every week it's just, I can tell it's the same people listening, because it's almost like it's one or two numbers off. Like, it might be one roommate listens, then it's a sports show, so he doesn't. So I have good listener retention, which is what Kirk always says. And if it grows, it grows. I'm not looking to make money off this show. I have a really good job that makes me a lot of money anyway.
So. I'm not talking about money. I'm just talking about listening, just for your sake, and dial in a little bit more and think about what's going to set you apart from other shows and find that, and then your audience will grow.
I guess it's the lack of care for my audience. Like, it's like, if you listen, you listen. If you don't, fucking, it's like blind Mike. Listen, if you don't want, to,
denied being a Kirk impersonator, but then talking about your show, you've referred to what Kirk does about 10 times. So I'll let the audience be the judge.
It's more of a blind Mike thing, how he's always like, hey, if you don't fucking want to subscribe, don't fucking subscribe. I don't care. Like if you don't want to listen, if you don't care about sports or Australian COVID updates and shit like that, don't listen. Like I said, I'm not trying to make anything out of this. It's just therapy, and I'm going home this weekend, so I may end up stop doing it soon, because my therapy will be over. So
is he going? It was awful, awful, as he would say. Awful. Oh, terrible.
Awful.
He was talking about your show there.
It was
no one can do. Anyone who tries to do an Australian accent they just end up sounding British.
Nustin does a good one. Nustin from Milwaukee.
It was awful.
Actually, yeah, his was pretty good. Yeah, the only good one I know who's done it is actually Tom Shattuck. He actually did a really good one. He didn't sound British at all. Everyone else just sounds like we're English. Like,
yeah, no. All right. Well, look, we've chatted for a long time. Let's finish it up. We did get some, viewer questions. So thanks to everybody. There's some really great fans of the Aussie Minifan show. I call them Menifans, but they're Menifan, Jamie fans kind of thing. All right.
You make the show, so
what?
I'm just the blind Mike. You make the show.
Well, you said it. All right. So first question from KMS Reddit. At what point are you going to stop handing out advice for Kirk and Dave on Twitter and sit down with them and give them your genius on a consultation? Well, Red, as I said, bookings are open. I would love a mentoring session with Dave or Kirk or both. I think I could really help Kirk, not on the on-air stuff, but on the off-air stuff.
He just doesn't care. Dave needs to sign up immediately. There's a good 3 or 4 months worth of weekly lessons there that he could take advantage of. Kirk, he just cares about on air. He doesn't care about the background scenes. But Dave, looking down you definitely need to sign up, man. Menas will help you. He will help you.
And as I said,
he's a friend.
Free for Dave, free for Minifans. I'm so glad the hits has stopped. Finally, Dave's going to focus on his main show. I think if the hits work, it'd be a good lead into Kirk, like just beforehand, or. Yeah. But not in the morning when you should be, getting ready for what should be a great session of podcasting. All right, next question. This one's from Ted Sarandis. Now, do you remember him? He's been on the show about something. I can't remember what though.
The name is very familiar.
He owns something or he's done something with the show. Anyway, Ted writes in, will there ever be redemption for Minifan legends like Steve from Providence or Kevin from Bristol? Seems like they have been on the outs with Kirk for a while now, and I really enjoyed their contributions to the show in the past. Good question. What do you think?
I'm a Steve from Providence fan. He's one of the first Minifans I've ever interacted with, going back to Enough About Me days when Kirk finally left Kirk and Callahan. But I don't know. Kevin from Bristol's been out for over a year now, and there's no looking. Like, he doesn't mention him on the show at all. Only gets mentions when Minifans call in and ask about them, or when he actually calls in. I think Kevin's close to getting back in the window. He's called a few times and Kirk's picked up on his name, and Dave's not quick enough to, abort him as it would be. But I just don't know if there's any way back. Kirk's not a type of guy who, once he puts you on that list, you're out. Like, you would know, you're slowly making your way back, but it's been a long slog.
Look, it's been a tough slog. I think the Mena's brand rebuilding, it's been a huge success. And it's one of the reasons I'd like to share this sort of skill with other Minifans, mentoring. Look, back to that question. I mean, let's just sort of dial in on Steve from Providence for a start. He seemed to be getting close to the show. He did the VFW walk. And then something happened and it just seemed to all go to shit. I know Kirk seems to refer to him as being one of the cunts now, and, he hates the show, but I feel like Steve from Providence got disenfranchised in the last few months of Steve Robinson, where the show was a little bit flat and they weren't having many laughs. Like, there were no laughs for a while there unless Kirk was generating them. So do you think that's it?
Yeah, he is one of the 14. We always refer to the 14. I used to be one of them, the old Aussie Stoolie, but he's dead now. But he is such a good character to the show. Even going back to Kirk and Callahan with Captain Hungwell, and the just shitting on Mutt is awesome. Like, I would like to dream of a world where Mutt gets fired from WEI.
Steve wasn't.
Kirk brings. Yeah, that was Kevin. But, Steve's shitting on Mutt every time he would ring in was great, talking about the kids. And I dream of a world where Mutt gets fired from WEI and Kirk brings him on as the third chair. And then Steve's back in the world and doing the same shit that he used to. But, once you get tarnished with that, part of the cunts, it's really hard to get out of that sort of mind frame in Kirk's mind. Like, you get death wished on you. Your calls get aborted if Steve's there. Dave's not really quick with that type of stuff. So it's a safer environment now. But unless you're like you and you're willing to do the work to get back into the good books, it's not just a lazy fix. You have to show Kirk that you're loyal. And I don't know if Steve from Providence is going to do it. Although he's very loyal. He's a cunt now.
I would say I'm the most loyal Minifan, without doubt. Without doubt. I mean, it's inarguable. With Kevin from Bristol, I sort of feel that he really fucked himself up. That Hall of Fame stuff where that sort of entitlement is never going to play well with Kirk. I mean, as soon as you start showing that you're showing feelings of entitlement, it's never going to play well. And then, if you listen to Kevin, and I like Kevin, he's a great guy. When he talks on Kirking off and stuff, he does have this sort of strange attitude where he sort of feels he was so close to being a star, but it didn't sort of quite happen for him because, he talks about this one comedian who kind of held him back and didn't give him a chance. And, poor Kevin, he probably feels like he was so close to being a breakout Hollywood star. And then I kind of feel he brings that attitude to the Kirk show. Like, I could be with Kirk on his level. I could be Kirk's co-host. And I think it's just too much for Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, let's one thing straight. No one is on Kirk's level in the miniverse. No one, not even close. Kirk is on a different level. You're there, but no one's on his level. And
no way. Kirk's incredible.
You're right that he did sort of come across as that air that he isn't like any ordinary Minifan. That he's slightly on a better level. Whereas you look at someone like Tim from Canton, who I think is one of the elite Minifans, isn't entitled, is one of the guys. He keeps this log of Kirk events in history. His quizzes when he rings up are great.
He's very humble.
He's very humble. He is still a Minifan at heart, but he's one of the elites. He's definitely a Hall of Fame Minifan. But that's where Kevin from Bristol should have taken it. And same with Steve from Providence. Just keep in that lane of I'm a Minifan first. I just get on the show more, but don't boost your ego with that. You're just like, I get through. Kirk likes me. I've been in group threads with him, but, I'm still a Minifan. This information goes to the Minifans where, Kevin and Steve sort of, not Steve so much. He didn't think he was on another level. He just made some bad decisions. But yeah, Kevin thinks it's almost like he thinks he's on a different level to other Minifans. Like he's above us. And that's, Kirk's not going to enjoy that. We're fans of the show. Blind Mike is still a fan of the show and he knows that, but Kirk likes him. So he's in there because he knows he's a fan of the show.
Kevin also went on.
Was better.
Yeah, Kevin also went on kirking off and made up this, fairy tale story of him, getting with Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing at some party in LA, and just why make up stuff like that, Kevin? We don't need made up stories of you making out with Hollywood stars, and just leave it there. We know you, and I love how Kevin, like every time. He likes to tell people he was good looking 20 years ago. It's like, oh man, before I put on all this weight and blah, blah, it's a good looking guy. I mean, all right, we get it. Most people are actually better looking when they're like 25 than when they're 45. That's not a unique.
Shock horror.
Yeah. I think I've gone the other way, fortunately for me. But anyway, just incredible. All right. So look, we're coming to the last question was from Tim Ridgels, and it's from his dog. And it says, I know a sweet old guy that has some questions because I said on Twitter that, pit bulls should all be put down. There was an incredible argument between Flopper, Tim and I about the future of pit bulls. I don't want to relitigate it, but I have to say Tim's dog looks very cute. But as I said to Tim, if you and your wife ever have kids, I just hope the pit bull doesn't turn on the kids and bite its head off.
The way I look at it, dogs are like their owners. Tim's a great guy. He looks after that dog. That dog's probably very spoiled. So it's going to be a great dog. Whereas if, any breed that has a shit owner, it's going to be a shit dog. I have a border collie, and if we treated him like crap, he'd be an asshole. But, he gets pampered. He gets everything. He gets looked after better than I fucking do. So he's a great dog. It's all about how the owners raise them. You shit owner, you'll have a shit dog. If you're a good guy and you treat your dog with respect and you love it, it's going to love you back no matter what you introduce into its world. So
no, I don't think we need
definitely a cute dog, but
we don't need pit bulls. There's a few breeds we just don't need, but this is not a dog.
Not Jerry Callahan.
There's a few dogs we don't need. Put them down. There's a lot of other good breeds. All right. Anything you want to throw at the Minifans before we end, Jamie?
No, I would be happy if we didn't see Carubus again. I think Chris should be that permanent third chair on a Friday.
Agree.
So
yeah.
I'm very happy with that. Carubus shunned the world because he got in bed with the Red Sox and Big Puppy. So bye.
Exactly.
You do that to the Miniverse, you're out. It's just that simple. And I guess go Yankees.
Go Yankees. I hate the Yankees, though. I hate the Yankees.
Yeah, I fucking hate them too. That hurt.
All righty. Well, are you going to have Minifans on the Just Jamie B show, or is it just going to be you and other guests?
Depending on how they kind of the guest show is going to be, it's going to be like if it's a topic that I want to talk about. Like there are people in the Minifan world I would like to have on to talk about things that they do. When it comes to like video editing, audio producing, things like that, but not just because they're Minifans.
Madawaska Rob would love to talk about sport with you. If you ever want a US sport.
Yeah, he's someone that I might hit up because he's a good producer and he's a massive sports fan. So we can get him on to talk about, American sports, Boston sports in general, because I'm a fan of all them. So yeah, he's someone, but I'm not going to get a Minifan on just because they're a Minifan on. Like, that's not how it works. It's not targeted to Minifans. So
beautiful. All righty. Well, this is the Aussie Minifan show signing out. I'm in Sydney, Australia, 10,000 miles away. Jamie's a couple of 100 kilometers from me at the moment. Well, so we send all our love to all our American friends. I'm Andrew. I've been joined by Australia's Kirk Minahan, and we will be back next month, hopefully, with Jackson.
Yep.